All right, guys. Dave Lowshelter here, Dad Bod Judo. Got Sam back. Sam's back on the podcast. So, hey, Sam, what's going on, man?
How's it going, Dave? Good to be back again.
So what's on your mind today?
Just having a conversation with my friend who is a boxer, and his name's Dan Harvison. He's like a 16-0 pro boxer. And we were having this conversation just like 6 weeks ago. And we said, you remember back in the day when you just went to boxing clubs? There was no like stripes, there was no medals, there was just a record. There was a record of what you did and what you did, and that was the acid test. Is how many fights have you had? How many wrestling matches have you won? And I think when people wrestled and when people were boxers, they just did it because they loved it. So they just kept going back, but it wasn't really the masses that came to do it. So I think that where the stripes work really well is it kind of is a retention tool that helps people stay in a sport longer. And I think it's great for the kids. I think it's really, really good for the kids because I think kids do need that little bit of recognition and that, group support and clapping when you get that stripe. I think it's great. I even think it's pretty good for the adults too, because, the world has changed. It's not just about being a strong wrestler or a good boxer. We are in a world now where we are more involved with instant gratification, and we, by default, we just want everything a little quicker. And I think overall, I think it's a positive thing. I think the stripe system is really good because it takes a 10-year process. It takes you about 10 years to go from white belt to black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
And that doesn't account for injuries and stuff like that there. So if you take each belt, let's say 2 years, that's white, blue, purple, brown, and black. And by the way, 10 can be pretty fast. I mean, some people do it in 15 and some are longer depending on their life. But I feel like you're just taking the overall load and you're able to chop it down. And like even now, like I've seen people be like a 3-stripe something for over a year before they get their next stripe, So even the gaps between the stripes have become even long too, depending on where you are. But I think that sometimes it can be negative in the sense that there's that anticipation. You're looking around you more and saying, oh, that guy's got 3 stripes, I got 2, that guy's got 4, I'm about to go. But the guy that's got 4, that doesn't mean that the guy that's got 2 stripes doesn't get the next belt. So that's where it can be a little subjective. But I think overall, I would rather have the striping system in place versus not. And but that's because I didn't know it any other way in the martial art world. But in boxing, you just went because you loved it. And then also you quit doing it when it was just too hard to do. Right? I mean, wrestlers, I don't know about you, but you wouldn't be choosing to go to wrestling class right now and do all the grinding and weight cutting. You wouldn't choose to do that now. You loved it when you were fit enough to do it. But if there was still that little, here's a little carrot, here's a little carrot, you might even go and beat your body up more, and that overall wouldn't be very good for your body. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you go through phases in your life too, that where you do the sport in different ways. Yeah, you could start out, as just having fun with it as a kid, then you can like continue it and get maybe competitive with it if you want to do that and really kind of go for it. You have that small window of that competitiveness. And then you get to a certain point where you want to just you want to give back to the sport.
Yeah.
There's a certain you've learned, you've had a lot of experience. I mean, one of the reasons I'm doing this channel is just to give back. I mean, I just want to give back my knowledge of all the stuff that I've learned, and then bring people like you on, with different types of viewpoints, and just share ideas, and just see if that benefits somebody. Great. If it doesn't, then they go to somebody else's channel. But yeah, that's kind of like I think there's a point where it's like you're not going to be able to do. I mean, I certainly can't do things I could do at 25.
Right.
Not even close. Right. But it's great exercise. It's fun to help these youngsters come up and share knowledge, not just the judo knowledge, but like we're sharing with the mental training.
Yes.
And all that stuff is stuff that I never got when I was a kid. Nobody ever sat me down and gave me the Jedi mind trick. So it's like, you know, I feel an obligation. It's like, you know, so it's a real waste not to give back. When
Right.
you've dedicated your life to something that you loved and you enjoyed and you put every ounce of energy into it, and you have this broad base of knowledge and depth of knowledge, you know, give it back now. And here's the thing, who gives a crap if you're a black belt? It doesn't matter. Your belt's still black. It doesn't matter if you're a first degree or fifth degree. It's still,
Right.
yeah, you can do a sixth, seventh, and eighth. You get you get a red and white belt, things like that, and people get into that. That's fine. You get to that phase and you get to that level, then great. If you don't, it doesn't matter. You're still giving back. I mean, you could be a red and white belt and not give back. That doesn't help.
Sure.
That's a master. That's something that like shows like you know what you know like really well, right? But you got to have the behavior to give it back and to say, okay, this is what I know, and then also keep learning. I mean, now it's kind of cool, you know, when you're not competing, you're not under the gun all the time. You can really take your time and learn like really cool stuff and learn from the masters and keep evolving, you know, your judo and your jiu-jitsu, just because you should. Like, you never stop learning.
Right.
So who gives a crap what belt you are? You know, if you go into it as like, I'm going to continue to learn as much as I can and better myself, it really doesn't matter at that point what's around your waist. It doesn't matter if it's no-gi, if it's wrestling, if it's judo, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So that's the way I see it now. You know, I'd rather be a black belt and, you know, and to be able to give back as much as I can, you know, on my channel and at the club and to other people in different ways. It doesn't matter what I wear. If I wear this shirt or I wear a different shirt on a different podcast, it doesn't matter. You know, it matters what we talk about. So I
Right.
think
The substance.
that's the point, the substance, right?
I can tell you that whenever I first went on your channel, you know, I was training with you last year prior to the Worlds to try and get a little bit of stand up bolted onto my jiu-jitsu, and I really didn't have enough time to do that. But I remember you telling me, "Hey, check out my channel. You know, if you want to learn how to do judo." And you know, I went, and I didn't know it was your channel. You just said, "Hey, go check out Dad Bod Judo." You know, it was like you didn't say it was my channel. You just, "Hey, check it out. That guy will teach you some stuff." You know. And then I went home. And I was like, man, I went on. I was like, this is cool. You know, he's a cool guy. He's funny. He presents it well. He's got a humor. He shows you a little blooper reel at the end. And, you know, but I said also some of the stuff he's showing, or all of it, is there's educational nuggets in there. And it's like very applicable. And you could watch one of your videos and grab somebody and you could start learning yourself. So your channel has been really beneficial for me and in more ways than one. The entertainment factor, and then there's the actual skill acquisition factor. There's things that I've seen you do. Like there's one thing that you did called the fencer step.
Mhm.
And I thought that was, wow, what an interesting concept or thing. You know, just little things like that. You know, it's like sieving for gold. You've got your paddle and you put the dirt in and you put the water in and you sieve it. And
Mhm.
sometimes you get a gold nugget and sometimes you get a piece of dust. My point is that your channel's been that. It's been another resource to help me out. And I would definitely recommend anybody who listens to this to definitely check you out if they're wanting to improve their stand-up game and throwing. And since we're talking about improvement and strategy and things like that, you know, you've been doing judo for probably 40 years. I think you said 40 years. Is there a moment or a time in your life when something happened that brought you the most amount of impact as far as improvement? You know, people say like, oh, I was doing really well and then I met this one guy and everything changed, or, you know, when I started doing this, I got so much better. Was there a moment that you can share that really made your judo better? Or was it a cluster of things? Was there any standout moments that you said, wow, that when that happened, I really got better?
Yeah, there was a few. The most remarkable one was I had the opportunity to go to Europe for a summer and went to Italy and Switzerland to train when I was younger, and that was just the intensity of that and training with people that, I mean, I didn't throw anybody for like a month. I mean, I just got beat up. but you get beat up and you get beat up and you get beat up and you just adjust to it. And, everybody was better. Like nobody was a slouch. As soon as you thought, well, let me take a break in randori and get this small guy, which I was a small guy, this guy was smaller than me, I got destroyed. So it's like, holy moly. So it's like there's no substitute for hard work, but there's no substitute for training with people that are way better than you. And when I came back, it's almost like a delay. Like I came back and then there was a couple tournaments, and I felt stronger and better than ever have. And some of the tournaments I did well at showed that. So yeah, that was a remarkable moment that showed me like that's really immersing yourself into it is the other part of it too. We talked about, at the beginning about, consistency and training and, that type of thing. But there's also immersion into that where you're putting yourself in an environment and you're just getting the tar beat out of you. And that's really good for you. Like that's not a bad thing. Like you want to get beat up and because you will adjust and you will get better. That you can't help it. If you keep trying, as long as you don't quit, you're going to get better. So as long as you don't get hurt and you're good, you're good. Like that's the difference.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying like get beat up as get hurt. I mean, just get beat up as just like physically, just really under the gun for a long period of time. You can't do that all the time. I'm sure you have to, but if you immerse yourself into camps like that, then you come back, physically stronger and better, mentally stronger and technique wise, no doubt. So yeah, that was one. Had a couple instructors that were very, very influential. A lot of instructors actually, but a couple that were very influential that brought more philosophy and more like mindset and things like that I'll never forget. I even wrote about it in my book, the second book that I had. Hey guys, I got a new coaching system that I developed. It's called the Mind Coach System. It's a 7-step process to help you reach your peak potential. We talk about dreams, we talk about goals, we talk about strategy, we talk about execution, mindset, and then reaching your peak potential. By using all of those, we can get you there and we can develop a plan for you to be able to find your goals and to reach those and reach your peak potential. So click the link below, check it out, contact me, and then we can go from there. I remember, and now I know why people get really good. I mean, the best guys, the best guys that I grew up with, they were always in Europe and Japan. They always had a training camp in Europe and Japan. They're always somewhere else. And it's like, that made sense because they were in Germany, they were in France, they were in Japan, they were somewhere else where there was really good judo and training camps, and that's how they got really good. And I've interviewed, Jason Morris, who's a 4-time Olympian. I've interviewed, other Olympians and talked to other people that were national champions, and it just some of the stuff is pretty basic. It's like just work hard, but put yourself in the right environment to work hard.
My friend's daughter is Juliana Pena. She's about to fight for the UFC championship belt in October, and she's a pretty amazing person, pretty great fighter. So really, I'm hoping she wins that. I was going to ask you, like, when you went over to Europe to do that training and you put yourself in this environment that at the time you kind of knew you were going to need a harder environment because you've heard the rumors, but did you know the lesson when you got there? And what I'm saying is that when you got there and you started to realize these guys are tougher, they're better, there's just something about these guys. Did you know at the time that it was going to make you better, or was there a moment where you thought, "Oh my God, this is different"? Was there? You didn't just walk in the door and go, "Oh, I know if I get beat up by these guys for a month, eventually I'm going to get better," or was there like an aha moment, like, "Oh my God, these guys are tough. I better step up and learn and grow"? Or what I'm saying is that sometimes you don't know it's going to be a positive experience until later on.
In this case, I did know because I knew all the people that were winning were doing it.
Okay, so
you knew people that were winning, all the people that are beating me and winning consistently, they were doing it, and I was like, "Oh, that's a secret." And I was like, because I come from a club that has some really good players.
Right.
We were all pretty good. Like we and very competitive. We had a super competitive club. We had some very good competitors, and we all trained very hard. I mean, my training partner went to the '96 Olympics. Maurice
Wow.
Club, and she and I trained together. And so we had Olympic athletes there, and multinational champions and things like that. So everybody there was pretty good. And knowing that going to other countries that have a lot of other people that do judo, and they're really good at
Mhm.
judo, and they're trained, they're just better at it
Yeah.
because they have more people, they have the numbers, and they have the instructors. I just knew if I did that, it would enhance it, and I was right, it did. And so,
Right.
but yeah, no surprise. It was no surprise.
Right.
I was surprised. I was surprised how the muscle memory when I
Mhm.
got back was so reflexive. That's what I was surprised. I was like, wow,
Mm.
this is like I don't even have to think anymore to be able to do this. Like that surprised me. I was like, wow, I'm like, I am like really on autopilot right now. And that's when you're at your best. When you're autopilot and you don't got to think and you just
Right.
it's kind of like in the movie Maverick. You ever see that when he's the latest one?
No,
Tom.
I have not.
Okay, so Tom Cruise he's talking to the first one. Goose ends up dying, but Goose had a kid. Well, Goose had
Oh,
Rooster.
Maverick. No, sorry. Yes, Top Gun Maverick. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So he was telling the Rooster, he's like, don't think, just do.
Mm.
He already knew he had it in him, but he was just
Right.
his mind was getting in his own way, and he was second guessing himself. That the notion of like him saying that don't think, just do was saying that you already have it in you, just let it go and
Yeah.
just fly the plane and
Right.
just don't overthink it. And that's when you start to really get, when you're at that point. And boy, I wish I had that back because that was a really good feeling.
You want that loving feeling back from
Oh
Top Gun.
man,
One thing I want to say is that there used to be this thing in jiu-jitsu where people would think like to get better, you had to go with the toughest guys in the room all the time. And I saw an episode of Joe Rogan, and he said that's not how you get better. He said you need to go with people that you can beat a lot of the time in order to hash out and iron out the movement and the movement patterns. And he said that you have to have people that you can significantly beat the practice. You've got to have people at the same kind of level that challenge you. And then you have to have those people that humble you and show you that there's a higher level and levels to the game. But they said like some people have it back to front. They always feel like I got to go against the toughest guy in the room all the time. But what happens is because that guy's so good, he nullifies your efforts, and you don't really get to get into the deep of actually learning the throws. But if you go against, like, say, you go against a blue belt, you're going to throw him around like he's tumbleweed, right? But you can actually get better by doing your move because you know he's going to have less resistance. And it's like, say you learn a move, you do it on a white belt till you can get it on a white belt. Then you go to a blue belt and get it till you get it on a blue belt. Then you try and get it on some purples, all the way up till you're doing it on a guy the same level as you. But some people think that they learn a skill and they try to go against the toughest guys in the room like it's going to help them when really that can stifle your development, I feel. And I've heard that from several other people, one being Joe Rogan, that you go with the lower belts so that you can actually practice and get success. And then the small victories, then you start applying what's known as graduated pressure,
yeah.
where the guys give you other problems to think about it. But by the time you get to the higher belts, you've done it so many times that your brain's freed up that space because you're doing it automated. And when you're doing it automated, now you've got time to layer in some of the finer details at the higher level. And then if you go back down to the white belt level again, you sharpen again and keep increasing the intensity. But again, all that takes time and effort too. So, but that's just what that reminded me of when you were telling me about the being in the room with guys that were better than you. It seemed like when you went over to Europe, you knew the environment you were going into, and then when you come back, it was almost like you had I'm not going to say a superpower, but wow, my reflexes are better, my timing's better. They're just because you were experiencing higher level problems, and you chose to be in that environment versus going with somebody that you can always beat and I think we talked about this before, not putting yourself in environments where you're being stretched. Like if you're in a room of 10 people and you're the best guy, you might not develop as good if you go into the next room and you're the middle guy, because there's guys so much better than you. What did they say? You don't always want to be the smartest guy in the room, or you're in the wrong room or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also too, you know, you get different looks. So
Yeah.
different people give you different looks. So you have to adjust the technique there as well, which, you know, there's levels and there's different strategies. So at different levels, there's different looks too. So it's
Sure.
another layer there that gives you, you know, some people are righty, some people are lefty, some people grip high, some people grip low. Depending on what you gotta like, what your game is, you gotta adjust to that as well. So yeah, that helps. That's why I only randori at the kids class, you know what I mean? Because I can beat them all, you know. I just, you know, then I go home feeling good about myself. You know, all those 10-year-olds, I can slam them and then just go home and then brag to my family that I won every match.
And then they go home and say, they go home with a smile on their face and say the coach beat the shit out of me, and they're happy. They're not even taking you up for abuse. They love it, because you know what it's like. You know, I've rolled with coaches before, and it's almost like a badge of honor when your coach beats the shit out of you.
Oh, I know.
It's like, oh, my coach beat the shit out of me last night. It's like a trophy.
Yeah,
So you're giving out all those nuggets, and you go home feeling great about yourself.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I mean, I think Rogan has a good point. Yeah, I'd have to agree with him. I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, I think that's one way. And I mean, I think that's also just evolutionarily gonna be there. If you have enough people in the room, you're gonna have that. There's gonna be a bell
Right.
curve. Depending on where you are in the bell-shaped curve in that population is going to depend on, you know, who's better and who's is not as good. Yeah, and people are better at some things than others too.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, you know, some people are taller, some people are shorter, some people are stronger, you know, so it all depends on that. So I don't think it's one or two dimensional. I think it's multifactorial, that where you're able to kind of like look at the whole system, and you can kind of like try your techniques on different people, and you're going to get different things each time. And you have to, like you said, it's problem solving. You have to problem solve that quickly enough to be able to adjust and be able to execute the technique.
That's awesome, man. And that sort of leads me to this next thing, just when you're talking about strategy and things like that. And I know we've talked about this. We've talked about the thing called the OODA Loop.
Mm-hmm.
And the OODA Loop was designed by a guy called Larry Bird, who was a fighter pilot. And what he would do is he would strategize the guy that he's training with. So let's go Maverick and Goose. So Maverick would be behind Goose in the plane, and our Goose would be behind Maverick in the plane. And within 45 seconds, Maverick would be locked on with the guns, and Goose would be disengaged from the exercise drill. And the OODA Loop is basically a strategic system for winning. And the acronym is observe, orientate, decision, act. And if you think about little cogs turning, what happens is that no matter what you go to do in life, so say we're doing judo and you grab me, I have to observe what you've just done, and then I have to orientate my body, and then I have to make a decision to break your grip. So what we're essentially doing is our loops are working against each other. And every time I break your loop, you go back to the point of observation. And then, but we're both and the whole key to the OODA Loop is to try and get inside your opposition's loops and do the action faster, so that you can get to the action part quicker in the process. And if you can light enough fires around your opponent's body, then eventually he'll succumb to death in the fighter plane example. But in jiu-jitsu, it would be, you would eventually get closer to the submission, or in judo, you would get closer to the throw. But I think that the OODA Loop itself is a strategic model that could be used in anywhere where there's human performance, where there's competitive edge needed. And I'm just wondering, had you heard about the OODA Loop, or is there any models of strategy for winning that you are involved with or working with?
The one process improvement good model to use would be the PDSA model, which is called Plan, Do, Study, Act.
Oh,
So when you're
okay.
planning, you got to plan out what you want to do. You want to do it. You want to study it, and then act upon it. And then it's a cycle. So it's actually cyclical. So
Yes.
it's PDSA, plan, do, study, act, would be a model I think we could take into consideration in terms of getting better, because you're always
Yes.
cyclical, you're always kind of walking it through and taking a look at it. You know, if you plan out the technique, you do it, you study the technique, you act upon the technique, you plan it, you plan some more. And so similar to that, right? Where you're
Yeah, I like that.
getting
Yeah,
better.
I really like that. I feel like that's a loop that's like you could take a lot of energy, or you could do it pretty quickly. You could do it within an hour's class. You could be around that loop and already have feedback for you to go through the loop the next time you come to class. So I think that would be very beneficial to people that don't maybe want to spend hours and hours and hours and hours learning these mental models. That's something that they're probably already doing some of it. They just
Yeah.
haven't made the connection in the words that you use and actually the process that they're following. It seems like a lot of these strategic mental models, we're already doing them. We're just not aware we're doing them. And I feel like from a competitive standpoint, even the OODA loop or the model that you just described, if you know the model and your opponent doesn't, you already have a strategy on him because he's just kind of going through it aimlessly. But if you do those steps and you're aware of the steps, you can come back and you can dominate the competition just because you're aware of the model in the first place, you know?
Yeah. So it's yeah, so there's a lot out there, but you know, finding something that fits you, that makes you know, the kind of like you can utilize, you can standardize. It's a
Sure.
standardized, proven model that you can utilize as a coach or as an individual or as an athlete or as just a recreational exercise. I think it's a really good thing. So yeah. But man, it was great having you on again, man. It's always a fun time, you know, talking away. And I'll tell you what, got a lot done today, that's for sure.
That is for sure, Dave. It's been great speaking to you today. I always enjoy the conversations. I always walk away from the podcast feeling a little smarter than I got on, and that's not because of the way I spoke. It's always because when I listen to you, I get good ideas, and I take those away afterwards, and I like to study and make myself better and improve so that I can become the person I want to in life. So thank you for that mentorship, and it's been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, nothing better than sharing good ideas, man. All right, man. Well, I'll talk to you. We'll get back on, and we will be back, ladies and gentlemen. Dad Bod Podcast. Yeah, Stan will be back for sure. We got all kinds of other stuff we're going to talk about as well in the future. If you haven't subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment below, and put the links at the bottom of this video so you can check them out as well. And we'll talk to you in the next video.